At last, the day we've all been waiting for has arrived. Yes, in the latest version of Honkai Star Rail, which is version 2.7, Sunday will finally be available in Phase 1 for us to pick up, using Stellar Jade of course. As you may have noticed, I've been discussing this character quite a bit, even since he was declared missing in several versions ago. You know, actually I'm not a big fan of Sunday, but he's got some great abilities for a support role. In fact, some people are already calling him one of the best support in the future. Okay, without further ado, I'm BD Gamers and we're going to dive into the ultimate guide for Sunday version 2.7. Let's do this. Do you have a character or weapon in the game that you really want but you don't have enough Stellar Jade? Here is a smarter way to recharge your favorite games like Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail. Look no further than Loot Bar. Loot Bar is the most reliable top-up platform. It saves up to 20% for all orders compared with the official channel, and it provides an 5% off for your first purchase. It's 100% safe as you will only be using your UID. We will buy pack for 3,000 Stellar Jades for $42, which otherwise would have costed $50, totally saving $7.5. We received the crystals we purchased in less than 3 minutes. All recharge will be done through the official channel with MiHoYo, which allows you to enjoy all top-up offers. Ready to level up your gaming experience? Check the link in the description to get the amazing discount. Just to give you a heads up, Sunday is the 6th 5-star character to have the Harmony Path and 8th 5-star character to have the Imaginary type. Sunday is a character with an intriguing background. He started out as villain but is now a playable character. There's a rumor that he will be joining the Astral Express crew in the upcoming version 2.7. Some of Sunday's key advantages are that he is a handsome character. No, I mean that he can pass on his advances to an ally, who then get various buffs that increase their damage output. I know this might not be unique enough for you, since we actually have a character with a similar kit, namely Bronya. But there's more. He's got other utility abilities that are pretty unique, like cleansing debuffs, generating skill points, and the most important one is buffing summons or servants of character with these mechanics. Overall, Sunday is great for characters with summon mechanics or without. Alright, now we are going to dive into the first topic in this video, which is his base stats. Sunday's stats are pretty average. In the HP section, his HP is roughly on par with Bronya and Sparkle. But among the 3 support characters, Sunday has the edge in the attack section, where he is Harmony character with the highest attack status. Unfortunately, his low speed and size of his ultimate capacity make up for his high attack status. When we compare Sunday to Bronya and Sparkle, we see that Sunday has the lowest speed at 96 points, while Bronya and Sparkle have higher speeds at 99 and 101 points, respectively. Sunday also has the largest ultimate capacity among the 3 characters. If we compare his to Bronya and Sparkle, Sunday has a total energy capacity of 130 energy, while Bronya and Sparkle have a capacity of 120 energy and 110 energy. This means that Sunday needs to put in a bit more effort to make up for this deficiency so that he can consistently cast his ultimates. One of the standout abilities of this character is the skill called Benison of Paper and Rights. This skill is really useful and has a number of different effects. The first effect of this skill is that it allows one of our chosen allies, usually the main DPS, to advance and immediately get a turn. Needless to say, this isn't a new concept in Honkai Star Rail. We've also identified several other characters with comparable kits, such as Bronya and Sparkle. On second thought, this effect seems similar to the effects of some of the skills of the characters I mentioned earlier. However, there are some differences in how this skill works. Compared to Bronya, Bronya can only advance one character to get a turn. In contrast, Sunday can advance one character along with a summon or servant. This means that this skill can advance 2 characters at once, making it more powerful than Bronya when used on characters with summon or servant mechanics. Regarding the second effect, in addition to the usual benefits of this skill, it can also advance the action on the ally we choose. Plus, the ally will take additional damage. The extra damage the ally gets from this skill is 30%. But if the ally we choose has a summon or servant, the extra damage goes up again to 80%. That's pretty high, of course. This will clearly be higher than Bronya's skill, which can only increase the damage of the target ally by 66%. However, Bronya will be much more effective if the target is a character without a summon. On the downside though, Bronya's damage boost is only 66%, and her buff only lasts a turn. This means that after the character attacks, the buff will also disappear. One downside to this effect is that sometimes characters will use their attacks outside of their turn. There are characters with a follow-up attack mechanic. Needless to say, they can't benefit from this buff because it disappears immediately. But you don't have to worry about that if you have Sunday, because Sunday can provide a much longer buff for 2 turns, making the buff he provides more consistent. One last thing. This skill can recover 1 skill point when used on character with the Beatified buff. This means this character has neutral SP and won't waste SP usage. Unfortunately, this skill can't be used on other Harmony characters. Yeah, I know, this is understandable, as otherwise we could create an unlimited loop with characters like Bronya, right? Alright, next up is the ultimate kit, called Ode to Chaos and Kickatrix. As with the skill, this ultimate has a number of effects, which makes it a really cool addition to the set. This ultimate provides 20% energy to one of our team members, which then gives them a special status called the Beatified. The 20% energy boost is based on the character receiving the buff's energy capacity. So the more energy capacity the character has, the more energy they will receive. Some examples of characters that can receive a lot of energy through this ultimate are Yunli and Urgenti, who have a very big energy capacity. Sunday can also provide a cool buff that increases critical damage based on 30% of his own critical damage plus 12%. This shows that Sunday needs a lot of critical damage to get the most out of this ultimate. Right, so let's talk about what Sunday can do. The talent called The Sorrowing Body will give us an extra 20% critical rate when we use skills. I have to say, this is pretty solid talent. It will be great for hyper carry type main DPS, which often needs a high critical rate. On top of that, this buff lasts for 3 turns, which makes it pretty much permanent. This technique, called the Glorious Mysteries, will provide additional damage to the target that Sunday's ability targets by 50% for 2 turns. This buff is pretty good, especially since Sunday's buff already provides an 80% increase in previous damage. If we add it to the buff from the technique, the target ally will get an increase in damage produced by 130%. I know this only applies for 2 turns, but we can already imagine how massive the buff can be given by Sunday, right? Alright, let's move on to Sunday's traces section. Before we get into that, let's take a quick look at his trace bonus. The trace bonus adds a 37.3% critical damage, 18% effect resistance, and 12.5% defense. Frankly, this trace bonus is great for Sunday because it lets you add status, especially critical damage. As I mentioned before, Sunday needs a lot of critical damage status to provide the best buffs. The addition of critical damage status is a great improvement. The only downside is that there's no speed bonus on the trace bonus. So we need a lot of speed status to make Sunday as effective as possible. That's a shame. Then in the first passive traces section, called Rest Days Longing, if the energy given to the ally is below 40 points, it will be added to 40 points when using ultimate. This means that any characters with an energy capacity below 200 will automatically get 40 energy, regardless of the percentage owned. This is a good thing, because the average character in this game has less than 200 energy points. Next, there's a second passive trace called Exalted Sweep. When the battle starts, it gives you a 25 energy. This is a great trace for Sunday because it lets you use the ultimate much faster. If you use the energy regeneration rate on your main stat, you can use ultimate on the first turn. Pretty cool, right? As you can see from the energy calculations I've listed, if you don't use the energy regeneration rate, your energy will reach 120 points, which is still slightly below the energy needed to activate Sunday's ultimate, which is 130. However, if you use the energy regeneration rate on your rope section, you will be able to reach 130 energy on the first turn. I think you will find this trace pretty cool. And lastly, the last passive trace effect is no less impressive. The trace called Heaven in Palm can clear debuffs if Sunday uses his skills. This is also a very good passive trace, especially for some characters who have summon mechanics. I'm thinking of Jing Yuan, who often has problems because they cannot run their Lightning Lord when Jing Yuan is hit by crowd control from the enemy. I think this is pretty important passive trace. Finally, we'll go over Sunday's Eidolon and some calculations. For Eidolon 1, Millennium's Quietus, when Sunday uses the skill, the target ally can ignore the defense of the enemy by 16%, and their summon can ignore the enemy's defense by 40% of the enemy's defense. I think this Eidolon is great, especially if you plan to take characters with servant mechanics in the future, like Aglia and Castoris. In my opinion, the buff on this Eidolon has a big impact on the damage produced by the character summon or servant. That said, if you're not planning to create a servant team in the future, I don't think this Eidolon upgrade is particularly significant. Then for the second Eidolon, named Faith Outstrips Frailty, it will give you another 2 skill points when Sunday first uses his ultimate. Plus, it will boost the damage done by allies who get the Beatified buff by 30%. I'd say that the extra 2 skill points at the start are a pretty good addition, especially if you've got a few support characters in the party. That way, they can use their skills freely at the start of the battle. The 30% damage increase is also a nice addition. Well, then for Eidolon 4, called Sculpture's Bramble, it has a very interesting effect. Even I have to say that this Eidolon is more interesting than the previous one. Eidolon 4 gives Sunday an additional 8 energy. Now with the addition of 8 energy, Sunday has the possibility to able to issue the ultimate for 2 turns by requiring some external energy that is obtained outside of his kit. As you can see in the table, using Energy Regeneration Robe, Signature LC, and Eidolon 4, you can get 123.16 points of energy in 2 turns. That means Sunday only needs an additional 6.84 energy to be able to issue his ultimate. Pretty cool, right? Regarding Eidolon 6, it has the unique ability to stack the effect of adding critical rate up to 3 times. This means that the additional critical rate provided by Sunday can reach 60%, which is pretty impressive. It's pretty easy to get the most out of your DPS in this game without worrying about critical rate. On top of that, the talent's effect will increase by 1 turn, which is 4 turns in total. On top of that, when Sunday uses the ultimate, he can also apply the effect of adding critical rate on his talent to the target. That means he can give an extra critical rate to 2 allies in the team. I think you will find this is really cool. Another interesting thing about Eidolon 6 is that it lets you convert critical rates above 100% into critical damage. For every 1% of excess critical rate, you get 2% critical damage. I must say this Eidolon is quite impressive. Even if you have Eidolon 6, your main DPS doesn't need to worry about the critical rate status. I used data from one of the content creators who used Jingyuan as the main DPS with Sunday as support to determine the damage produced. From this data, it's clear that his Eidolon 1 and Eidolon 6 both contribute a significant increase in damage output. If you're looking to boost your damage output, I'd suggest getting his Eidolon 1, as it can increase your main DPS's damage output by up to 15%. Pretty interesting, right? Okay, before we move on to the next part, let's do a summary of all the buffs he has. At Eidolon 0, buff increased damage 30% to 80% through skills. Buff critical damage increase of 72% through his ultimate. First turn ultimate that can grant minimum 40 energy to the main DPS. Cleansing debuff to main DPS every turn through skills. Buff increased by 20% critical rate. Buff 50% damage increase through technique, and your main DPS will get a double turn. As for the improvements obtained through Eidolon 1 to 6 are buff ignore defense 16% for characters and ignore defense 40% for summons or servants, recover 2 skill points at first ultimate and 30% damage increase, at 8 energy every turn, and increased critical rate on targets up to 60% and can convert critical rate to critical damage if it exceeds 100%. We've covered most of Sunday's kits, but we haven't touched on his signature light cone yet. His signature light cone, called a Grounded Ascent, is a great choice for those looking to make a big impact. When the user of this light cone uses a skill or ultimate to one ally, the user gets an additional 6 energy, and the target gets 1 stack of him, which can last for 3 turns and can be stacked up to 3 times. Each stack of him increases the damage done by the character by 15%. Plus, every other time you use a skill or ultimate, it will recover 1 skill point. In my view, this is a great light cone, arguably one of the best in the set. The calculations in this video show that you can access Sunday's ultimate every 3 turns using this light cone because it provides 6 energy every turn. Plus, your main DPS will see a big boost in damage, up by 45%. The best part is that you can recover 1 skill point with every 2 uses of skills or ultimate. By using this light cone, you can make Sunday a positive SP character. You can see the changes in SP recovery in the table I've provided. Sunday will be able to provide additional skill points on turn 2 and turn 3. This will make him a positive SP character who can provide 0.66 SP per turn just by using this light cone. Pretty cool, right? And finally, we come to the discussion about builds, which you might have been waiting for. What is the best build for Sunday? Well, let's find out here. If you're looking for a relic set that's good to go by Sunday, there are 2 solid options. The first set you can use is the Messenger Traversing Hackerspace. As we know, this relic is great for support characters because it can increase speed by 6%. When the user uses the ultimate on ally, it can increase the speed of all party members by 12% for 1 turn. This relic can be used on Sunday, but I believe it's better suited for the early game given the current conditions and its limited effect. If you're still using this relic on Sunday, I'd recommend looking for something better. The second relic is the best one to use on Sunday. It's called Sacrados Relic Ordeal. If you look at the picture on this relic, it's clear that it's good fit for Sunday. The picture shows an accessory used by Sunday after all. In my opinion, this relic is better choice than Messenger Traversing Hackerspace. In addition to providing 6% speed, it can also provide an additional 18% critical damage, which can be stacked up to 2 times. So, if we add it all up, the critical damage can reach 36%. I think that's a good start. What about the planar ornament that's suitable for Sunday? There are 2 planar ornaments that are pretty good for Sunday. The first one is Lushaka. This one gives you an extra 5% energy regeneration rate. If you're not the first character in the lineup, the first character in that position gets an extra 12% attack. As for the second planar ornament that you can use is Broken Kill. Broken Kill and Lushaka do have a fairly similar effect, because Broken Kill can increase critical damage as well, but the effect applies to all members and provides a lower critical damage, which is 10%. This planar ornament is quite suitable if you use double DPS in the team. Okay, next we will move on to the recommended stat that you should use for Sunday. Since Sunday's kit is very similar to Bronya, the stat you're looking for are as follows. Regarding the light cone I suggest for Sunday, it's his signature light cone, of course. I really think this light cone is worth taking. The effect is too good to miss. We can get an extra 6 energy per turn, a 45% damage increase buff, and best of all, this light cone can generate additional skill points for the team. I think you will agree that's a good one, right? If you don't plan to use his light cone, you can use Bronya's instead. This light cone can be used on Sunday because Sunday and Bronya have similar kits. However, when compared to Sunday's light cone, Bronya's light cone has a much weaker effect. You can also use another light cone that is quite free-to-play friendly, the Past and Future. While it doesn't provide additional energy, it can increase damage buffs for characters who receive skills from Sunday. Okay, finally we come to the last segment, which is the best teammates to pair with Sunday. I think the best choice for the first character is a team that uses Jingyuan as its main DPS. As you can see in many showcases, Jingyuan is one of the characters that stands out as a great choice to benefit from Sunday. The buff from Sunday can eliminate all of Jingyuan's weaknesses, including the slow speed Lightning Lord and the problem of Jingyuan's frequent crowd control. So it's clear that Jingyuan will be a great addition to the team on Sunday. In my opinion, the second character that will be perfect for Sunday is Budhill. Budhill is a character who still needs critical rate and critical damage, unlike some of other characters in the Break team. Since Budhill already has a pretty high critical rate and critical damage based status, there's no need to worry about critical rate status with Sunday. Plus, if you have Sunday's Eidolon 6, you will definitely get a big boost to your critical damage because Sunday's critical rate buff will almost certainly exceed the existing 100% limit. Since Sunday is a pretty versatile character, there are actually lots of other characters you can pair him with, even ones without a servant mechanic. You could try Topaz, Jingliu, Danheng Il, Yunli, and various other teams. What do you think? Okay guys, maybe that's the ultimate guide about Sunday. What do you think? Do you think Sunday is an interesting character? Please type in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching, stay safe, stay healthy, and see you in the next video.